Today I might blow your mind when it comes to processor core counts and power usage. But first, my name is Steve Smith, this is TQA Weekly, and one of the fans of my Facebook page who also follows the show asked me an interesting question about about whether or not a processor with a higher core count actually requires more power in order to run, which got me thinking. That's actually something I've never thought about. I come from the era of the x86 and Pentium, where you were able to code anything you want for single-threaded performance, and each of these processors were faster and faster and faster, and you could just throw anything at it, and you knew that Intel was going to come out with something faster that would make your program faster. You didn't have to optimize anything for it. Eventually, they created the Pentium M, which was the end of brute force and the beginning of efficiency when it came to programming, and that is when everything started to change for programmers. So in order to answer the guy's question, we're just going to compare a single to a dual core processor. The math equation, which you can go and see in the sources of my show at tqaweekly.com/SE8EP09, indicates that there is a 40% power efficiency between a dual core and a single core processor. The dual core processor is actually 40% more efficient on power than a single core processor, just from architecture alone. And the fact that there are more cores has almost nothing to do with that. What more cores has to do with anything, which we can explain in a simplistic way, is the fact that it gives programmers the ability to parallel code, so coding for multiple threads. If programmers take advantage of multiple threads, they could reduce CPU time at the same time, meaning that while the processor itself is more power efficient, they can be more efficient with the CPU cycles, allowing for the program to run faster. See where I'm getting at? That means that that program is actually going to be more power efficient, and the processor is more power efficient as a result of the work of the programmers themselves, as well as the architecture of the processor, which takes us to the next thing. The nanometer size of the die of each of the CPU cores keeps getting smaller and smaller. The smaller the size of the die for each of the CPU cores, the fewer electrons actually fit inside to flood all of the transistors, meaning that it requires per core less power, because we can equate power to the amount of electrons inside of there flowing, meaning that it actually allows for obviously faster reaction times because there's less distance to go, fewer electrons required, and because of the way that you can actually now use those programs that were probably made for processors with a bigger die actually do run faster and are even more and more power efficient at the same time. And the more cores the processor has, and the more cores obviously the programmer is capable of including in his program, the faster the program will be, because it will actually use fewer cycles on the CPU and become more efficient. So what am I getting at? Well, the answer to the guy's question is having more CPU cores going to require more power from the computer? And the answer is no. And there's also another easy way of actually proving this. The CPU socket itself has a maximum amount of power that's going to go through it. And that is what makes it so completely cool. Because the socket has a maximum amount of voltage that's going to go through it. The only way you can actually scale up performance is scaling up the number of cores, which requires you to reduce the nanometer size of each of the processor cores inside, or make the CPU itself bigger, like AMD's Ryzen. Meaning that overall, these processors are getting more and more efficient, and as long as the programmers are making programs that are more and more efficient and capable of using all the cores, these programs and those processors will require less power, with the only draws being that the smaller the nanometer size, the more heat output there's going to be. Although there is going to be an important caveat that I need to throw out there before everybody thinks that you can just throw 32 cores into a computer and expect everything to run completely flawlessly and faster. programmers can limit the number of cores a given program can use. In many cases, they might do this for video games because they want to be able to allow each person the ability to buy a video game, so they maximize the amount of dollars that they in fact get. So this is why we rarely suggest anything over four cores like the i5 unless you're doing streaming or any other highly intensive tasks, because there's no real benefit going above 4 cores if the programs you're going to be using don't use the extra cores at the same time. So to you, the person that I really can't pronounce your name's going to be down below, who asked this question, no. CPUs with more cores does not require more power. They're more power efficient, and as long as the programmers do their job right, they will continue being efficient as the number of cores in our processors goes up or the standards for a CPU socket finally changes. Like this episode if you like it, dislike it if you didn't, share with those that you think could benefit from this, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics like that guy did, please email me at ask@tqaweekly.com or go to my website, tqaweekly.com, for everything else. And if you like this show and you want to help make this better, go to patreon.com/tqaweekly and become a patron today. Patrons get these episodes 24 hours in advance of everyone else. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.